Harjinder Lallie, Anmol and Avneet. Anhan's going to now kindly load the presentation up. And this presentation, I'm sure you'll be really excited to learn about, is kind of changing the landscape for the music exams that were really kind of central to kind of the Western musical instruments, but now with Harjinder's help and support, we're now kind of broadening that over to Indian classical musical instruments as well. So without further ado.
Thank you. So that's my LinkedIn QR code. So if you're not already connected, please do connect. So the question you're probably asking is, why is this presentation being presented in a Sikhs in Academia conference? Well, what this journey represents is my kind of 26 years of academic experience, external examining, building quality courses, building quality into courses, and taking all that experience and applying it to kind of something that is really important to our community. So it is really a deep-rooted academic journey that I'm kind of going to talk about today. And I'm going to be accompanied by two of our absolutely wonderful students, Anmol, who is a Warwick student, and he's just come to the end of his journey here at Warwick. And he's one of our project team. Our project team is huge, and Anmol has a very specific role within that team. And Avneet, who is about to be Warwick student, who is also part of this project. So they're going to contribute to the conversation as well. So let me give you some context. This journey started with our music academy. We teach music, Kirtan, to around 130 students in the Midlands, age range 8 to 60, and we have 10 classes now. In fact, this morning we've all just come from a class. I delivered a class. My daughter, who's 14 years old, she delivers a class. She actually taught Anmol. So she's part of one of our tutors. Anmol teaches a class here at Warwick. Avneet teaches a class straight after my class. So it's a big kind of academy, and we've got a waiting list now. That's where we're at. We just cannot keep up with the demand. And we have a very organised syllabus. We've had a very organised syllabus for a long time, and that's kind of courtesy of my experience in academia. So that's the backdrop, that's who we are. Here's the problem. Music schools in the world, Indian music schools across the whole world, are based around what we call the Guru Shish Parampara, which is I'm the teacher, you're the student, you will respect me, which is quite right. I will kind of decide, what I'm going to teach you. My particular school has these nuances, and it works well. It's worked well for a long time, but it's not a very organized kind of system of teaching. There is no standardized accepted syllabus, and what that means is for a Western population, trying to teach them according to the Guru Shish Parampara doesn't quite work, because they've been raised in a very systemized, organized, system of learning. Hasn't kind of worked for them. No measures of agreed indicators of performance. In other words, how do I know I'm doing well? My Ustad is saying I'm doing well, but how do I actually know I'm doing well? How do I, are there any exams? Is there any sense of measurement? So what we have are kids who've been learning for years and years and years, and they've kind of got nothing to show for it, in the sense that, yes, Kirtan karde hai, they do Kirtan, people say, Baba, very good, bahut sona hoya, that's it really. Whereas their counterparts have been learning violin for the same period of years and have a grade 8 now. Certificate which is recognised on their UCAS application. So I'm an admissions tutor. We get about 650 applications to the cybersecurity degree, undergrad degree every year. and triple A star entry requirement. Typically double A star A is kind of what we end up with on the course. We can only make about 150, 175 offers, but around 350 of them are predicted the grade. How do I decide who we're going to make the offer to? Yeah, the predicted grades aren't going to be enough. We're going to look at everything else. That Duke of Edinburgh now suddenly becomes important because it differentiates between that candidate and that candidate. The grade 8 piano now becomes really important. This is a candidate who is extremely disciplined. That netball championship becomes really important. Can you see now all those things become important? And what are Sikh kids and Indian kids writing on their UCAS application? I can do Kirtan. Now imagine I'm white. I'm like, what does that mean? Can you see? So this was a big problem for us. We had to find a way of addressing this. So what did we do? The journey begins just around COVID time, where I think we need to fix this. We need to somehow get this music recognised. So I went to just about every music examining body. I went to, I'll name them, ABRSM, LCM, Trinity School, RCM, the lot. And I also, to be fair, did go to MTB as well, the Music Teachers Board, to say, this is who we are. We want to get Sikh music recognised in the curricular framework. Yeah. And it was rejection after rejection after rejection. They didn't really want it. What kind of numbers are we looking at? Will we make any money out of this? They just didn't recognise the music. So it just, became very downhearted. We got to a point where me and the directors of GSA said, why don't we become Ofsted licensed ourselves? We got the paperwork, we filled it in, went through a long journey. It was really, really tough journey. And then suddenly, out of the blue, MTB contacted me and said, that conversation we had, can we resume that conversation? And that's when it all kind of like, wow, this is probably going to happen. And we had lots of meetings with them. And eventually MTB, the Music Teachers Board, said, we will recognise this music. Can you now get on with developing it? So we then set up a committee, and this was a big challenge in the sense that now this is the other thing you need to know, and if you don't do music, if you don't do Indian classical music, you might not understand it, but in Indian classical music we have what's known as a Gharana tradition. Gharana means, this is my music school, and it goes back, centuries maybe, or they claim to go back centuries, and we're very strict. We play the Dilruba like this. And we use these fingers. They play it with one finger. They don't know how to play it. Their music is rubbish. It's really kind of competitive. They're very kind of, they don't talk to each other. They're kind of, trying to get two Gharane into the same room to talk to each other is extremely impossible, right? But we have managed to get all these different ustads, all these different teachers into the same room, representing lots of different schools. Getting, I'll call it the Khalsa Bant, right? Into a room with the Namdari Bant was another challenge. So the Namdaris are I'll call them a sect within Sikhi, and their musical talents are out of this world. Their musical ability is absolutely out of this world. They've preserved the tradition, the stringed instrument tradition, and trying to get the Khalsa Bant into the same room to say you're going to be working with the Namdaris to develop this syllabus was very difficult, right? But we managed to do it. Here at Warwick, in fact, just 2 rooms away is where we started our curriculum development. So that's the curriculum committee. You'll see some tabla players there as well, because we then have also started the tabla curriculum as well. We've developed up to grade 3 on the tabla. This is our wonderful, wonderful committee. We've got Sukhmani, Basics of Sikhi. She's part of our review group. We've got Anmol, who's going to tell you about the work he does. We've got, it's such unbelievably amazing to work with this group of wonderful musicians, right, to develop the syllabus. So that's the curriculum committee. What do we now have? I've just got 2 slides left before I hand over. We now have an Ofqual UCAS internationally recognized music exam. It's literally recognized in the USA, Canada, Australia. It's 8 grades plus a pre-grade. It tests kirtan on tanti saj, i.e. stringed instrument. You sing, you play the instrument. It's very, very difficult. And it's aimed at 8 to 17 years old. That's what we had in mind, that a kid will start at 8 years old and do a grade a year, just like they do with piano, for example. And that by the time they get to 17, which is university applying time, hopefully they've got to grade 8, they can put it on there. There's no question about the University of Warwick or any other university not recognising it, because when you fill in the UCAS form, it's listed there. You pull the menu down, it's music exams, you select MTB, then all their exams come up and it's there. I saw it there with my eyes for the first time, Sikh sacred music, and I was like, wow, this is absolutely out of this world. So it's there, you select it, you then have to say what grade you're at, and it's grade 6, 7, 8 that get you the points. So you say grade 7, it asks you whether you got a pass distinction or pass merit or distinction. You say I got a distinction, and it automatically calculates the UCAS points and adds it to your application. So it's real and it's actually happening right now. And that is just in case you were wondering how do the points work. That is how they work. Okay, I'm now going to hand over to Anmol, who has a very specific role in our project. Anmol.
Thank you. So I've been learning Danti Saj with Ustaji now for about 2 years, and obviously during that time I have been put to work with all the producing the books, but I do a lot of the behind the scenes work, so I have the relatively easy job. I'm just going to be talking through kind of the process about how we make these books from beginning to end, and how some of the challenges and stuff that we've had. So first of all, this is just a quick overview of what the books look like. So cover, and then the more interesting parts are the actual recitals. So these are the compositions that we use. So we'll see it a little bit more clearly in a second, but we generally use thank you. So we generally use Anmol Sargam and such that Ustaji actually had to create a font for from scratch in order to just make sure that we can have Gormal variations. So we use like a lowercase and an underlining, so that's actually combining 2 different notation styles. Dots on top and dots on bottom to show which saptak, so which octave we're using. And then underneath that we do have the Gurmukhi. So my role actually is doing something very similar but with the English version of this. So I transliterate the Gurmukhi to English, and that's using the ISO standards. So just before I actually move on to that, this here we can see is actually the coding that we use. So within the classical music there is a lot of creativity that we like to show, but for an examining point of view it's important for us to be able to examine everyone equally, and so we've had to make this notation from scratch, this coding, and what it signifies is what part of the composition to play. So for example here, asthai, a box around it signifies that we're singing as well, whereas a box not around it means that we're just doing an instrumental piece. The subscript shows how many times we're going to repeat that part of the composition, and the number on top shows how many notes per bow we're using. So you can see that the notes per bow actually increases, meaning we're bowing at a slower rate. The instrument's not as loud because we're focusing on vocals. So again, this is a completely new type of notation that had to be created from scratch. And as we've been moving along the grades, as we introduce more kind of complexities and intricacies, we are going to have to make new notation up as we go along, and that's been a challenge in and of itself. Again, with our tradition being more oral, it's a little bit difficult to actually get everything on the same page and get some sort of style that's coherent and usable for everyone. This now is the transliterations. This now is the transliterations. So what we do here is trying to make it accessible for people who can't actually read Gurmukhi. We introduce transliterations using the ISO 15919 standard. And all that means, it's a fancy way of saying that this is the internationally recognized standard for all Indic scripts, so including Shahmukhi, Gurmukhi, Devanagari, and Urdu, in order to try and make sure that this is legible to people outside of kind of a Sikh culture as well. We want to be, in those the Sikh sacred music exams, we want to be making sure that this is accessible to everyone, and that we are giving people opportunities to kind of learn about Sikh sacred music too. We've had loads of challenges with this. We've had issues with pronunciation, so we can see on the next slide. Here's an example of a transliteration we've done. So Nam Japo, we overline the A, so we include a macron to signify that it's elongated. There are pronunciation differences with this because of various Gurbani schools. So for example, I think Daksali's and Nibala's different pronunciations that we've had. And we've had to try and find a middle ground for that. And what we decided is that just to define this as a transliteration, we are going to explicitly show every akkar. So for example, there is a matra below the mamma on the nam, which means that technically here we can see it actually doesn't have a U, whereas in our translation we would include one. And it's little things like that that we've had to kind of get used to in the long term to try and make sure that it's consistent from scratch. You've had to do some back and forth between the different grades.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so this was a very surprisingly controversial issue. So Nam and Nam, just that very tiny difference in the pronunciation. When I was taught Santhya, I was taught that every single lag matra is there for a reason and you must pronounce it. So you have to say Nam. And it's difficult, it's going to take all your life before you get it perfect. And there's another school, which I'm not going to name, very dominant school, where they ignore almost all the laga matra. So we as a committee had to have a debate, and it didn't get fiery, but people in the committee had been raised up in a particular school and said, no, we always pronounce it Nam. And I said, no, we always pronounce it Namu. The Namdari said, no, we always pronounce it Namu. And the Baru Sahib, Nanak Sar, all on one side, and all that on one side. I never knew this debate existed, right? But it was there, and in the end, we did exactly what Anmol said we did.
That's pretty much near the end of my piece now, but essentially all we're trying to say is that a lot of work has gone into this. We've tried to make considerations for everything throughout. So again, from the transliterations, just one small part which I play. I'll hand over now to Avneet, who's going to talk a little bit more about the marketing side.
I'll try and be brief because I know everyone wants to go to lunch. So let's move swiftly on. So hi everyone, I'm Avneet. I do a lot of the marketing, social media. I also help to write and compose some of the shabads that you've seen in the previous slides. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what I do for the marketing. I initially started doing Instagram posts just for GSA, but it flourished into something incredible. When I first heard about the news of this groundbreaking syllabus, I felt incredibly honoured that our Ustadji wanted me to do marketing for it, put things out, do infographics and things like that. And now it's, once a seed that had been planted, now it's truly flourished. And I think for me, making posts and making articles and things like that, I really wanted it to be a part of storytelling and try and connect people with it. I think it's one thing seeing a picture of a child playing the sarangi, but there's something else knowing how long it's taken that child to learn how to pick up the bow and how to play the notes and how to develop their own listening and oral skills. So it's so much more than likes and shares and that sort of thing, but it's connecting the audience through storytelling and linking this movement to the teachings of our Gurujis and the people that have paved the paths for us. So yeah, it's really, really important that we have this. It's a part of history, it's a lineage that we can hopefully pass on to generations that come after us. So the curriculum, as I said before, it manifests itself far beyond a syllabus. It's a gateway to a learning platform that transforms the way that Geethland is viewed. Geethland is not going to simply be something that is reserved only for one demographic, but rather is going to be understood by many, many people. So I'm really excited to see where that all holds. So a lot of the things I do includes quotes from Gurbani, linking the teachings of the Guruji, so that we can really connect everything to really the foundation of this, which is our faith. And I'll quickly move on. So as you did briefly mention, we did have a syllabus workshop here on campus, which was awesome. It was really, really good fun. We had some of the most amazing pioneers in Geethland and Raggis come together. I was honestly starstruck. Like, I was there with my computer, my iPad, and I was just in awe. I was listening to these insanely incredible musicians and Raggis, and they were just like pulling shabads out of thin air and curating them and putting words to surah, and it was amazing. I remember, I think we were in a room with by Balwant Singh and by Gurbal Singh Banisar, and genuinely my jaw was on the floor. I was like, how am I this lucky to sit here and to witness all of it? I think my computer went dead because I was just like there in absolute awe as to what they were doing. So as Anmol kind of touched upon, we do use specialised software. We use Excel software, and we use the specific standardised font. And what I did, I was typing away and essentially translating the notes and the sort of writings and everything that the people there were creating, and I put it into Excel format, so it was able to be printed and put into these wonderful books that are now being able to be accessed by all of these students, not just here but worldwide, which is immense. So yeah, I think in terms of the narrative that we're building, the conversations that we're having, it's all really pointing towards a future of great promise, of great technicolor, and I think that this is only the start of something really, really beautiful. So thank you for listening, and yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I don't know if this video will work. Just to finish, this was one of our sessions. There were about 6-7 of us here on that day. Liverpool were playing, and this is actual work. This is how the work took place on the day.
It was multitasking. So my eyesight's actually wow. It was multitasking.
So it was just a little funny anecdote, but I think the whole process of creation that took place on the day, some of these, you heard in the background, they were composing. Some of the, we call them bundishes, tunes, compositions, were very old. We don't know how old, maybe 100, 200 years old. Some of them they had to create on the spot, and that's what you were referring to, where we just said it has to be Siri Rag, it has to be a Bardal, it has to be this, it has to be this, it has to be this. We gave them the requirements, and the composers would go away, lock themselves in a room for an hour, and they'd come back and say, we've done it. And it'll be scribbles on a piece of paper, and then these guys would have to take those scribbles and notate them, and then go back and say, is this what you meant, right? And it was honestly, it really felt historic, what we were witnessing here on campus. So Avneet and Anmol were emotional. I was very emotional to say, look, I can't believe this is happening here at Warwick, right? That these bundishes are being composed, right, by some of the world's best composers. That's it. We will maybe take 2 questions and then finish.
Thank you very much. I like that last video because I think we might be doing that at next year's conference, won't we? If the World Cup's on. So, Harjinder?
I've just got 2 contributions really very quickly. This was to Harj.
Oh my God.
Oh, just to say, it's only I went to a vintage show and I bought cards back for everybody, but not every hero wears a cape because you've done so much to help students and myself as well. So thank you for devising this. And of course, the sarcastic one for you, mistakes.
Frida, I'd like to make sure everything's all up.
Question at the back.
Yes, Raj.
Yes, just to say that was absolutely brilliant, and I feel emotional listening to it. You've put us on the map, so well done to you all, and yeah, I'm so proud to see that. And just in terms of the lessons, because if you live in an area like I do, which is predominantly white, is that accessible? Can you be thinking about kind of doing that virtually? You know, is it a possibility? I know it's a really tricky thing to do, but what
Do you want to answer that? We've spoken about virtual lessons, haven't we?
Yeah, so I'm from the northeast, so small town like near Durham. So I only found out about Geeta and stuff, had the opportunity here when I was kind of here in person. But we are trying to identify teachers. I think Avneet's got a massive list of all the gurdwaras in the UK, all the teachers nearby, and we're trying to make sure that no matter where you are, you've got someone maybe near you that you could possibly commute to, because quite often it's just people that know that. Turns out Leeds, an hour away from me, actually had lessons and I could have gone there. The alternative is though that online lessons, especially since COVID, have become a massive thing. I mean, I've also got a vocalist start now from India, and that's because especially in COVID, you know, a lot of teachers had to kind of move on to online, and they are still doing online. So I think it's more so that it's accessible, it's just people have to first of all kind of find out that the opportunity is there, and we can kind of help facilitate that a little.
Yeah. So just to add quickly, just one of Avneet's other roles, and she's doing so much work for us, is she's developing a tutor list and a tutor network. So they're giving us so much work to do. She's in a gap year, right? So she didn't realise what she was in for when she said, "I'm taking a gap year."
Lovely. Trishna?
Scotland again. I'm on the advisory board of the new National Centre for Music that's being created in Edinburgh.
Oh gosh.
So we're planning, the plan is to have music, and I've been pushing for Sikh music, so you've created it, and we will, I'll put you in touch with them. It's still in the very early stages, but it's being, it's been funded, and so they've created the advisory board, and that's what they want.
Super.
Lovely. Right. Randeep, last comment, very briefly.
And one last one over there, don't look at it.
Just very quick, probably more for me than possibly, because I imagine you would then connect with schools as well, so that students know that they have those points.
Yeah.
That's a gap, isn't it?
That was a new school. It was the first Sikh independent school, and we connected with them, and they wanted to actually incorporate specifically keep them into their curriculum.
So I would imagine that the opportunity will be across the piece.
Yeah, I mean, what happened was last September when we launched it, we were on the way to Southall in the launch, and I said it's probably going to take off slowly. People will find out slowly about it. We were blown away. My God, we had the BBC calling, we had Sky News. I think we featured in about 37 international outlets. The Akal Takht Jathedar endorsed it, right? It was like, we were like, what has hit us, right? Schools were ringing us one after another to say, how can we do this? So it was absolutely out of this. So the last question from Randeep, then we have to go on.
Yeah, just to comment, first of all, I think when you were talking to Trinity, that's where my wife Jamila started talking to you. So it's through this that I...
Yes.
Second point was, I thought you had the extra marker, the pool and so on. My understanding from Professor Satsing is that there is Punjabi, we write it phonetically, but there are additional diacriticals which only have a grammatical function. So it doesn't need to be pronounced, but it means Guru Nanak is saying it or something. I was just wondering, because all my life I've heard the small o's and the small e's not being pronounced. That's just
Thank you.
that observation. It's fantastic.